Hey guys, thanks for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. Returning listeners, it's great to have you back. If you're new to the channel, really glad you joined us. Hope you like what you hear. So, we've got an awesome guest today. Her name is Jennie Hays. She has a business that she coaches and teaches a process called Brainspotting to help you get unstuck. That might be around food, that might be around personal issues, it might be around physical issues, it might be around business. It's a very interesting topic. She's a very interesting lady, was a paramedic for a long time, worked in her husband's remodeling business, and she's going to come on and talk about her story, what she learned from those things. And look, she just has a great personality. She has a great way of explaining things. She's clearly very bright, which comes across when you talk to her the minute she starts talking. And tons of stuff to learn here from Jennie. So we're really excited to have her on the program. Let's bring her on right now. All right. So, Jennie, thank you so much for joining us at Salty Ginger Talk. It's great to have you on board.
I am super excited. I've been looking forward to this for a while. I'm excited to see what we dig up and talk about. We had such a great introductory meeting.
Yes, for sure. It was over a month ago now. It's just crazy
Yeah,
how time flies, isn't it?
it's
Yeah, and
insane.
so there's all sorts of stuff that's gone on, but I love to spend what we love to spend time on is the all the things our guests have learned through the experiences in their life, because what we do on Salty Ginger Talk is just bring on people who have built lives that have taken them to great spots. And what we have found through those stories is rarely does someone wind up where they set out to wind up, meaning nobody has a linear path. That I'm 3 years old and I want to be an accountant. And by God, at 50 years old, I'm the happiest accountant on the face of the earth. That's rarely what we find. And your story is no different.
Yeah.
And then the other thing we find is that people get to where they're at by taking action. And that's one of our themes on our podcast is you're not going to get anywhere, or good things don't just magically happen. People don't come wander into your living room and hand you stuff. You've got to go out and get stuff. And again, you're a great example of that because you've taken a lot of steps to be where you're at, and a lot through trial and error, and you get to talk about what you learn and all of that jazz. So what we usually do is have you start off with kind of a broad overview of your life. You don't need to get into a lot of detail. And then we go back and kind of go piece by piece and do a deep dive. And we get into a lot of detail then. So, with that, the floor is yours. If you wouldn't mind kind of telling us how you got to where you're sitting right now, that'd be a great start.
Yeah. Well, the broad overview take about 2 hours. No, I'm kidding. It's just been a very windy road. When I started off in high school, well, junior high and younger, I was going to be a famous country singer because we all have those aspirations when we're young.
Mm.
And then I got into accounting competition in high school. I was going to be an accountant. Turned down. I would have been third generation military intelligence. Turned it down. Absolutely going to be an accountant. So I got to my first accounting class. I was like, oh, we're not doing that. And then and then it was like, okay, now what's next? So then I decided medicine was what was calling me. I ended up being a paramedic, and I spent about a decade as a paramedic in the 911 system, hospitals, clinics, etc. And then my whole world changed, and it was like, oh, I can't keep doing this anymore. I need to do something different, and we can get into more detail as we get closer, dive in. And I ended up starting to coach, and I started coaching insulin resistance. And while I was a great coach, I was a lousy business person with a big, big L. Is this reversed? Whichever one it is. And then I ended up having to get a job with the company Zenny, and they taught me brain spotting. And it was night and day, turned my life around, turned my business around, and put me in a place where I really, really love what I do and the people I work with, and my life.
I love it. So there's tons and tons of stuff to talk about there. And just so everyone, nobody freak out, we're going to do a deep dive on brain spotting as well, because I'm sure you're out there going, what the
Yes.
fuck is brain spotting? So we'll get to that. I appreciate that Jennie teased it without getting into the detail, because we'll spend a lot of
Yeah.
time on that as we work our way through the conversation. But let's start with country singer.
Mhm.
Why did you want to be like, what was it about country music that you loved?
I always love that country music tells a story.
Mm,
And I think I also liked the fact that there was, in that story, there was a beginning, a middle, and an end. There was a resolution to it.
mm.
I'm one of those people that when Bohemian Rhapsody was really popular, I hated it because it had too many different sounds and it didn't follow the normal resolution that music needs to. And so, yeah, I had my idols and I grew up listening to Reba and George Strait and it was like, this is what I meant to do. Only thing was is at that time I wouldn't get on stage. Just minor problem. And
Technicality.
and when I did, I finally did get the guts up to do it. I had to have my shoes off. That was the only way I could ground myself, literally, to be able
Yeah,
to
sure.
sing. And so yeah, that career did not take off when you can't do it.
Yeah, I have very eclectic taste in music and I love country music. So I grew up, so I'm 53 and
Mhm.
I grew up with a lot of the same music that you did. And my mom was a big country music fan. And it was just, like when I got into high school is when cable kind of got big. And
Yes,
so you could watch like VH1 and the country music channel. And my mom played the country music channel every morning when
every
everyone was
day.
getting ready for school. But I actually really like even older country. Like I'm a big Marty
Mhm.
Robbins fan. I'm a
Yeah.
big George Jones fan. I'm a big Hank Williams fan. And my ringtone for my wife on my cell phone is "Hey, good looking" by Hank Williams.
I
Um,
love it.
when she calls me, that's the ringtone that plays on my
Yeah.
phone.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love country music too. And I prefer older country music, the new kind of poppier country music. I am personally less of a fan of. What's your take on it?
Yeah. There's some artists that I like, but they tend to lean a little bit more. I'm only a year younger than you, so we grew up with the same music.
Mm.
I just didn't have cable. They got cable the year before we moved out in the middle of nowhere. So, and then my parents didn't get cable at that house until after I was in college. So, I missed out on the VH1. I was doing the
Mm.
old cassette where you record it and, oh, the song's coming on, record it real quick so that you
Oh
had
yeah.
it. Yeah. I like the old country. I like some of the new country. I just wish it wasn't quite so poppy because that's what that was, is when we were in school, that was the pop music. That was the popular. It's the same exact music.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly right.
But I do love me some Miranda Lambert. Now I have to
Oh
say
yeah,
that.
sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. But yeah, look, totally get it. It's one of the reasons, and I'm not trying to get real political here when I say this, but it's one of the reasons why I dismiss a lot of these arguments about people saying, well, a kid knows what gender they are when they're 8. Bullshit. A kid doesn't even know what they want for dinner when they're
They don't
8.
even
Like I didn't know
know.
what the fuck I was. Like if that
I
was the case, we'd have a world full of pirates and princesses because that's what everyone wants to be when they're 8.
I was a tomboy.
Mm.
And so I was just discussing this with my husband the other night. It's like I can scarcely imagine who I'd be today if my parents had said, no, you like to climb trees and you want to go do all the things that the boys can do. You must be a boy. So you're not going to be a woman anymore. And I like being a woman, but I
Yeah.
didn't as a teen, you know.
Yeah, which
And
is yeah, which is very common. And look, I'm
yeah.
not at all trying to get political or be controversial or
Mm-mm.
downplay anyone that has strong
No.
feelings that they were born in the wrong body. Totally got it. My whole point is there's a lot of formation that's going on in those years, and we should not be altering people's bodies with surgeries or drugs until we're really, really sure that's what they want when they're adult and their prefrontal cortex is fully developed, right? So,
I
um,
agree 100%, especially from a medical viewpoint. There's just so much development that gets messed up when we go in and start to tinker with things. And if you honestly, once you stop growing, want to do that, I don't care what you want to do.
Me
Do
neither.
it.
Totally good with it.
Yeah,
Totally happy for you.
totally good with it. Totally.
Yep. Totally support you. But so speaking of prefrontal cortex,
Hmm.
then you talked about becoming an accountant. So
I know. Flip flop. I so in Texas we have something called UIL, University Interscholastic League, which is like athletics for the mind.
Got it.
And I took an accounting course. I don't remember why I took it, but I loved the teacher and I got involved in UIL and I did really, really well in competition. Unfortunately, competition and true accounting, I found out later, are completely different. And what I
Mm,
did at the time is I'm actually mildly dyslexic. And so when I would actually do the accounting, which for the younger generation, you have to realize that at this time we were doing it pen and paper. You might have a computer, maybe, but usually all of your ledgers were still pen and paper. And so I couldn't find the penny. And I didn't realize it was because my brain was switching numbers on me. All I
and so
knew is
you were doing it on like the old green bar with the columns,
the
right?
green bars with the columns. And
Yep.
yep, yeah, I can still smell, as we talk about, I can smell the paper.
Me too. I know of which you speak. So on dyslexia, do you actually see things reversed? Does your mind show them to you backwards? So, like, if you see the number 87, will you see the number 78? How does it work?
So the best way for me to describe it is that I see what I think I'm going to see.
Mm.
Um, this makes it really fun to go on road trips with me because when I see a billboard, I may read it completely different. In fact, the first time I saw a vasectomy billboard, I had to look at it like 3 times to make sure it actually said that. But that's basically what you do is that your brain expects to see something, and so it does. And you don't even notice that there's anything wrong until you go back. It can be really helpful to actually put your finger on the numbers.
Mm.
But I had no idea until I was in my 20s that my parents even had me tested and that I had been positive. They said they didn't want me to have a diagnosis and feel like I was um, held back or broken. And it was like, but I really would have loved that when I was taking calculus and I kept getting the questions wrong and I couldn't figure out why because I knew what I was doing.
Right. What the function is going on here?
Yes. So I love spreadsheets now because I don't have to do all that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, look, I have a degree in finance, and so I took my fair share of accounting courses, and I actually enjoy accounting too. The preciseness of it and the order of it is appealing to me, and I tend to process the world in a very left-brained way for sure. But I took one of the most brutal courses ever. It was a night class, and
Mhm.
so, it was once a week, 3 hours long. And it was a cost accounting class. And it was run by a guy who was a great accountant, but he was the most boring fucking guy on the face of the earth. And I liked him a lot. He was really nice, but he took accounting very seriously. So we were, a lot of times, and this was adult learning, so it wasn't kids. This was as
Right.
adults going back to finish your degree. And so a lot of times professors would say, "Hey, we're going to go for an hour tonight, and then I'll just let you take the rest of it home. And you're adults. You'll either do the work or you won't. It's up to you. You lose if you don't gain this information." This guy used the full 3 hours every night. And again, I liked him a lot. And it was funny because as we wound up the class, he pulled me aside. He said, "Hey, you were one of my favorite students ever." I'm like, "How would I fucking know that? Like, you've literally never expressed a thing to me. Like, loosen up a little bit, Rick. Like, undo that
Yeah.
top button just once. Give it a shot.
A
See,
little, just a little.
see how it feels. See how it feels, buddy." Um, but the statistics and that cost
Mhm.
accounting class are the two classes I use the most. The knowledge that I learned, better way to say it, the knowledge that I learned from those classes are the two that I use the most in the real world. Statistics and cost accounting. By far, they're the
By
most
far.
applicable to, in my
Yeah.
opinion, to the real world. So,
I didn't take statistics or cost accounting. My accounting stopped after high school because my first college level course, I walked in and I'll never know if the professor was boring because I'm sitting there in the arena area because it was a large school.
mm,
Um, and he walks in and he has this big stick and he's all hunched over and he must have been like 300 years old and he just looked mean. And I saw him, and there was something in my body and brain said, if you become an accountant, you're going to become that. You've got to find something where you don't sit at a desk all day. And that was, I dropped the class. That was my first and last accounting class in
Totally.
college.
That's where you pivoted to medicine, right?
That's where I pivoted to what the heck am I going to do? Because here I
Mm,
am at this, high-end school. I went to Abilene Christian University and I've invested 2 years already. I'm sitting here starting the major part of my degree, and now I know I don't want to do that.
mm.
It's
So you
like
knocked out all your prerequisites. It was time to
all
specialize.
prereqs. It was time to
Yeah.
specialize. It was like, well, crap. Now what? So I ended up my husband, my ex-husband, but my husband got transferred to the Dallas Fort Worth area. And so I had to withdraw from school anyway. So the timing, serendipity, God, whatever you want to call it, I had to leave anyway. And then it was like,
Mm,
what do I want to do? Who do I want to be? And it was really the first time that I really dug deeper than surface. Um, and I had been reading medical mysteries. I love medical mysteries like Patricia Cornwell, Robin Cook, those types of books. And I was like, oh, epidemiology. Okay. I
mm.
don't go in little increments here. I go, poof, poof, you know. So I was like,
No half steps.
okay,
No half steps for Jenny.
no, it's all or nothing. Both feet in. Um, and so I was like, well, epidemiology. And so it was like, okay, that's going to mean another degree, which means I don't want to do the same thing where I get in there and it's like, oh, I really hate this. So it's like, how can I get my feet wet? I was like, okay, I'll go and work at a hospital. And so I went to work at a hospital. And in one of my first shifts, we had an elderly patient who went into cardiac arrest. I
Mm.
was so new, I couldn't even do CPR at that time. All they did was say, push the button, call the code, and stand outside. We don't even want you in the room.
Yeah.
I was that new, but I got a rush from it. And it was like, wow, okay, there's something here. And so that's what drew me into paramedicine. I started off, it was like, well, maybe I don't want to do epidemiology. Maybe I'll be a pediatric emergency doc. And so I took my EMT basic and I had so much fun. Oh my gosh, it was such a fun class that it was like, well, I might as well stay for my intermediate. Well, I've come this far. I might as well get my paramedic. And then 10 years later, I was so crispy that I had to get out. But I enjoyed it. It was good work. I liked it, but it was hard.
Where were you, or where did you work as a paramedic? What area of the country?
Austin Travis County EMS, which at the time was one of the premier EMSs. Ed Rock was my medical director, and the man was not only brilliant, but he knew how to teach and he knew how to get people to learn.
Mm.
So I worked there for about 7 years, and then I worked in research for a year at Cyrex back when that was Cyrex. It's no longer. They change names on a frequent basis, but that'll get us back into politics. Um, and then I went out into a little town called Luling, which is actually in the poorest county in Texas, and I worked
Mm.
there for a couple years until God hit me over the head with a truck and I had a head injury and got out of paramedicine.
There you go. We'll get to that. I know that was your life-changing event, but
No, one of them.
yeah, right. Yeah, that's a better way to say it. I appreciate that. What did you enjoy? What did you like the most about being a paramedic? What was the best part of that job from your perspective?
I loved the medicine calls. I loved a good heart attack. That sounds terrible.
Mm.
But to be able to go in and say, "Ooh, I know what this is. I know how to help you. I can make you feel better. And not only can make you feel better, but I can actually change your life going forward."
And
And
this is
so
this is field work, right? You're going like you're getting
it's
calls
field
and
work.
going to people's houses, going to restaurants, going wherever someone needs
This is
help.
911 system. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we probably did 1 to 2 cardiac calls a shift. So I was in some areas that were very heavy in cardiac. Not as much heavy in the trauma, which was just fine with me because that was never my jam.
Mm.
And I didn't like the unconscious patient. If you can tell, I talk a lot. I want them to talk to me.
You wanted to revive people just so they talk to you, right?
That's right. I just wanted to revive you. Come back. I, I did it 5 times. You talked to me. Good. Okay, we're good. You know,
Oh man. What what was the most surprising thing about working as a paramedic? What were you unprepared for that was shocking to you?
90% of the calls are not emergent.
Really?
Yes, I spent so much time and that's where the bitterness eventually seeps in. And that's why paramedics burn out. It's not because they're running 911 calls and doing CPR and fixing trauma and all this. The burnout comes in because the rest of the time you're going over to the guy's house that likes to smoke a pack of cigarettes so his blood pressure will go up so that you'll have to take him to the hospital under stroke protocol.
Mm.
The girl that calls 911 and says she drank bleach, even though she didn't, because she wants to go and people watch. The guy that was getting rides from South Austin near one hospital to North Austin, where he worked near another hospital, he would call 911. We would transport him. He'd get there, leave AMA, go to work. The evening, he would call 911, get transport from on the ambulance back home. He did that for a
You're gonna be
week
kidding
before
me.
we stopped him. No, the
What
2
the
a.m.
hell?
call for the guy with the runny nose who lived across the street from the hospital and yeah, wanted to be transported. The people with the big screen TVs and 8 cars in their driveway that you go and you're like, okay, what's going on? Your insurance won't pay for it. And they say, oh, it's okay. I have Medicaid. I'm going with I'm going in the ambulance anyway. I'll get in faster if I go in the ambulance. Note to the listeners, that is not true. If you say to a medic, it will be the slowest entry into the ER you've ever had, I promise you. So
Oh my
that's where
gosh.
bitterness came in. That's where the abuse of the system. The good shift that I've seen in the years that I've not been on the ambulance is that they're finally recognizing paramedicine as a first line medicine. And so in some districts, they're able to do things like prescribe antibiotics, um, prescribe some mild pain medicines. They can't prescribe narcotics, but take care of some of these small things on site, leave them there. Whereas before it was if they call 911, you pretty much have to take them unless you absolutely know it's not and they don't want to go.
Wow. I had no clue that there
Yeah,
was that much abuse in that system.
most people don't. Most people don't.
You know, when I think about it, I guess it shouldn't surprise me because I know the 911 system itself is abused to no end. Like
Hmm.
people will call 911 if you fuck up their McDonald's order. Like, what are
Yeah,
you doing?
yeah.
It's
People
insane.
don't know what an emergency is anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just getting that piece of it's getting worse. When there's no self accountability, then everything's an emergency because you can't control everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like we as a society, there's a lot of people that really struggle with coping mechanisms. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, you're a fellow Gen Xer like
Hmm.
me, and we're notorious for just kind of letting shit roll off our backs, right? That's what we do. But I think some of that's our upbringing. When I was a
Yeah.
kid, and look, I know we love to talk about gender being this, that, and the other, but when I was a kid, it was pretty clear how you were supposed to act if you were a boy, and pretty like you just talked about
Mhm.
as a girl, right? You were a tomboy, so yeah, but yeah, you need to put on a dress and look pretty at church. You can go climb
Yep.
trees afterwards, but as a girl, that's what you did, right? And so as a boy, toughen up, walk it off was pretty much the solution for anything that didn't involve a bone sticking out somewhere
Yeah.
that it shouldn't, or blood pouring out somewhere that it shouldn't be pouring out of.
Yeah.
Um,
My my poor stepdaughter, she came to us when she was 12, and her mom was just a little bit younger than we are. And she got a sneeze, she took her to the ER just constantly. And when she came to me, I'm like, is there a bone sticking out? Is there blood squirting? You'll be fine. Rub some dirt on it, walk it off.
Yeah, totally.
I'm sure she will be on a podcast one day talking about her crazy stepmom. But
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah, you'll live in infamy on that podcast as
that's
the
right.
crazy stepmom. Oh my gosh. So you said you did this for about 10 years
Mhm.
and talk about the things and or the reasons that you realized, hey, I got to make a change.
Well, so I kind of knew beforehand. I was really getting burned out. I was beginning to see the world in a way that doesn't align with who I am. To be
Mm,
quite frank about it, I became very racist,
mm,
flat out, and that's not who I am. That's not, I mean, I love people. I grew
yep.
up a military brat. I did not know that different skin colors had different names until I came to Texas and was educated by somebody. Uh, I was basically told I couldn't hang out with them because they were black and I was white. I was like, wait a minute, why? So, but by the time I was nearing the end of my EMS career, I was flat out racist.
Mm,
And I didn't like who I was. And I'm a Christian by faith. And I kept feeling like it was like, okay, God's calling me to do something else. But man, I'm making really good money. I work one day out of every three. I basically have autonomy to do what I want to do because paramedics work differently than nurses. We don't have to go to a doctor and say, can I, can I, can I? We have standing orders. And so we get to make decisions. And I loved that. Um, but it was like, you're not who you're supposed to be. You're not who you are. It's not where you started out as. And I was at the grocery store one day with my husband, and I went to get out of the truck. We had an old 1980s truck, solid steel. And I stood up with both legs in the doorway. And so that panel that goes across the door, I crowned myself and I had a
mm,
small bleed. I had some amnesia. And true to Generation X paramedic, after my 45 seconds or so of amnesia, I stood up and I looked at my husband and I said, I didn't see stars, but I sure heard them. He was like, are you okay? I said, yeah, let's go grocery shopping. I didn't even get it checked out until
ugh,
the next day when I was at work and I couldn't move. And my partner was like, you've been in bed all day. Fortunately, it was a very quiet day, but I had to hold my head at exactly one angle to keep from being in horrific pain. And he was like, "Yeah, you're done. You're going home." And that's when I started getting it looked at. And I had a severe concussion, a microbleed. I had post-concussion syndrome for about 2 years. At one point, I couldn't even close my eyes without falling down. It was a really bad head injury. I couldn't do
mm,
math anymore, which coming from that accounting background, I was really good at math in my head, really good, especially
yeah.
doing pulse rates and respiratory rates. And I couldn't multiply by four if you had paid me $1 million. I had to write everything down to be able to do anything. And it was like, there's no way I'm going back into paramedicine right now. And I didn't know if it was going to come back. So I went home. We tried to get some disability because I was having migraines 5, 7 days a week, depending on the week, and couldn't do it. So then I ended up helping my husband with his remodeling business because I could do
Wow.
that when I felt good. And so I spent 2 years running a $100,000 a year remodeling business with him. Um,
Wow. I think, the concussion part is so interesting. So I went through college on a baseball scholarship. So I've been involved in athletics my whole life. And I think most people, when they hear the word concussion, they think either car accident or sports.
yeah,
Um, but it's actually not true. There's way more concussions out in the real world every day from experiences like the one you just talked about than there are in those other activities. Is that correct?
I don't know if there's more. I think the reason the sports gets the attention is because you're much more likely to have subsequent concussions, which can be deadly.
Mm,
Um, there's a phenomenon where you have that first concussion, and if you get hit again while the brain is still bruised, because that's what a concussion is your brain is bruised. It's very, very soft. If anybody's never done an anatomy class where you actually got to see a brain, it doesn't last long and it's like jello. It's very soft. So
mm,
when it bruises, it's really easy for those blood vessels to shear. And so when you get a second impact, there's nothing protecting those blood vessels and it can kill you very easily. And so I think that's part of the reason that sports gets more attention. Plus, they have the subsequent ones over and over and over again, which causes lifelong brain damage and it accumulates. Um, I would say that the majority of the concussion cases I've seen have been from trauma. I just managed to do it in a way that didn't make the story good.
yeah.
You know,
Right.
everybody was like, "Well, how'd you get your brain injury?" I was like, "Yeah, I stood up in a car." I was grocery shopping, you know? And so a number of people, even my doctor, he was like, "You've got to come up with a better story for this," you know?
Yeah, but I mean that's a life-changing event for sure. I mean, to not be able to work, to have post symptoms for 2 years, that's insane.
Yeah, and I'm just now noticing changes. It completely changed the way I learn. So I used to be able to read, listen to music, sing along, and be taking notes at the same time. And now I have very classic ADD symptoms in the fact that if I've got too much going on, I'm gone. I can't have music and do something, much less read while there's anything else going on. And I really hadn't realized that until recently. So, yeah, it really was a life-changing event. Fortunately, I'm not going back to college anytime soon because I think it would, instead of being the kid that's sitting in the front seat and never has to do the homework, I probably would have to work really hard.
Mm, yeah. How does it impact your mood?
Um, I
Well,
don't
for
really
you, how
think
did it
it
impact
does.
your mood?
Yeah, at the time it did. It was very depressing because I've always, again, typical Gen X, typical paramedic. I pushed through and I couldn't push through this.
Yeah.
Um, for the first 2 months, I was horizontal
Mm,
because anytime I would lift my head, I'd vomit. And you can't push through that. And so there was a lot of learning curve. Um, but being in the situation, I'm much tougher in other ways now because I had to learn how to build decks in 112-degree heat with a migraine. And so now when I get a migraine, it's like, yeah, this hurts. I'm going to take something and keep going. Um, so I push through in different ways. It's no longer, I used to let my body stop me. And now it's like, yeah, I just can't even listen to you because I have more things to do.
mm. Well, that's the hard part too, right? Is that typically when you push through that physical pain, it requires you a high level of mental energy. And when you're
Mhm.
concussed and recovering from that concussion, don't have mental reserve to tap into. So, like you succumb, I would think you'd succumb a lot easier
Mhm.
than, again, like, I went through, I've been in weight rooms for long. I started lifting weights when I was 12 and I've been conditioning for sports my whole life. And I've literally run and swallowed vomit and kept running because I'm like, you know what? Look, it's not going to stop me. I'm winning this race. Like I'm winning. I don't give a shit. I'm winning this race. But that takes a mental reserve. And look, I'm older and softer now. I couldn't do the things that I used to do for sure. I'm much softer than I used to be. I know that for a fact. I wish it wasn't true,
Yeah.
but I know it is. And I didn't suffer what you suffered from the concussion, so I can't imagine what that must have been like.
Well, I was fortunate in the fact that I was newly married. So I had gotten married in January and I had this injury in October.
Mm.
And so my husband, actually, because of the concussion, learned that I was a little softer as a female than what he was used to working with in the field. Because when we first started working together, he would yell at me and cuss at me and like, why can't you do this? And, da 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 da. And then by the time that I was ready to leave working in the field with him, which I was really ready, um, he was like, okay, make sure you do it this way. And oh, I noticed you're doing this. And so it was really good for our marriage. So I had that support when sometimes people don't have that. And since we were
Yeah.
working together 24/7, we were able to say, okay, you know what? I'm getting tired. It's time to go home and we'll come back and finish this up tomorrow. And so I'm really kind of blessed in that way.
Yeah, well, that's good. And that's always helpful when you've got someone around, you can count on. I'm very fortunate. I've been married to my wife for 32 years and we've built our life around that relationship. So even
Mhm.
when, like anyone else, we've had our share of problems together as a couple, but we've never had problems between each other as a couple because we prioritize that. And it's because of that relationship that we're able to push through all of those other things. And we really are kind of the anchor of most of our family because people like, you can count on Joe and Sherry.
Mhm.
Like they're like, they're the Rock of Gibraltar. They're always going to be there. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. And
yeah.
my
I'm
husband's
glad
my
you had
rock.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm
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 glad you
so
had that.
glad. Yeah. Um, yeah, I have to say that he is definitely my rock and he considers me his. And it's the same. It's, do we fight? Yeah, but we fight knowing that, yeah, we're going to fight and nothing's going to happen. We're still going to be together tomorrow. Because we both made a commitment. This is it. We've both been married once before. And when we said I do that, I don't care whether you like me anymore or not. You're going to be stuck with me. And that's the way he feels too. And so the result is that he's actually my best friend and I'm his. And we enjoy, even 15 years, almost 16 years in, we love going to the grocery store together, going for a road trip together. He's one of my best parts of the day. When I close down the office, I get to go sit with him.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that. And that's we're similar. Like and part
Mhm.
of it for me, it's funny because people react to experiences so differently. So like my parents got divorced right after my wife and I got married. And they should have got divorced 10 years earlier, but they did the old stick together for the kids, which meant they
Mhm.
just really fucking hated each other for 10 years and then got divorced.
Made you
Um,
miserable. Yeah.
made everybody miserable,
Yeah.
themselves too. Um, but I would get sent to bed get sent to sit on my bed while they argued with each other. And I can remember being 8, 9 years old and saying, you know what, I'm not going to live like that when I get older. It's really important to me to have a good wife. I never had a strong desire. I have 3 sons, but I never had a
Hmm.
strong desire to have kids. I love my sons more than anything, but I wasn't like, I gotta have kids if I'm going to be a complete human being. There's lots of people that are that way, and that's great. I just wasn't that way. But the marriage part was very, very important to me. And that's like you said, we prioritize it. But our joke now, 32 years in, is there there's there's only one way now. There's no going back. There's no getting out. We said till death do us part. We didn't say how it happened. We didn't say who's going to be
Right.
responsible for it. So- but
Yeah,
that's
I
the
think
only way out, baby, for either
I
of
saw
us.
a social media post that says marriage, the only thing that you enter into in the hopes that one of you is going to die. I was like, okay, I never looked at it quite like that, but yeah.
Oh
So
yeah, but look, just to be very straightforward, I just totally scored. My wife is just an awesome lady, so it's very
yeah.
easy to want to be around someone as that's as good a person as she is. So, but I picked her too, right? So
That's right.
I got that. I might have fucked up a lot of other stuff, but I got that one right out of the
You,
gate. So
you
that's
get
good.
credit for that.
Exactly. Exactly. So you were working in the remodeling business. At what point did you decide to go and start a coaching business?
Well, that actually was still a little further down the road. So a
Okay, I
couple
jumped ahead.
years,
But
yeah,
yeah,
a couple
sorry.
years into the remodeling business, my husband rolled over one day in the morning. He says, "I think it's time for you to go back in medicine." And I mean, I was putting in applications that day. I was so ready. My brain still wasn't quite ready, and so I knew I couldn't go back on the truck. And I thought at the time that I wanted to. But I found a job in a doctor's office, in a podiatry office of all places. And I learned so much there. Loved the doctor that I worked for, Dr. Soliotis. She's brilliant if anybody's in the Austin area. Um, and I remember the day about, a year in, when all of a sudden I could multiply in my head again.
Mm,
And it was like, wow, I'm finally healed.
it's back, baby. It's back.
It's back. Um, pardon me. Give me 1 second.
Nope, no worries.
Oh. And so I worked there for a couple of years, and then it was like, okay, I feel like I've got my feet under me. Let's try doing paramedicine, but let's try it in a clinic setting as opposed to on a truck. And so I did that for a couple of years. And during these 4 years, I was diagnosed as infertile. And we were trying to have kids. Kids, like you, I wasn't high on my list of priorities. In fact, I assumed I'd never have kids. I never
Mm,
wanted to buy a house. I wanted to live in an apartment so I could go from apartment to apartment and get rid of stuff every time I moved. And I didn't plan on having kids. But when I met James, it was like, I would love to have a child with this man. And we spent several years trying and it didn't happen. So got the diagnosis. And I was doing research and it was like, you know what? This is related to insulin resistance.
mm,
And it's got to be because it was PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. And I think it's like 95% of cases of polycystic ovarian syndrome are related directly to insulin resistance. Well, I had just spent the last 20 years teaching diabetics to follow what their doctor told them to do, knowing that I was literally in an office where I would schedule the surgery to cut their feet off because
oh
it
God.
didn't matter whether they said they followed their doctor or not. I thought they were lying. Um, and I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to become that. I don't want to lose my vision. I don't want to die at 50. I don't, because I was still in my early 40s. Um, and so I did the research, which is what I do. I jump into research when I have a question.
Mm.
And I found out it's super easy to fix insulin resistance. Quit eating the crap. Eat eat meat, eat dairy, eat green veggies, and get rid of the carbs, get rid of the sugars, get rid of the crap, right? The processed foods, all of that. And so I dropped like 100 pounds. And all of these women around me were like, what are you doing? And so I started sharing with them. And to the point that I even had one coworker that I would bring leftovers for her so that she could eat the way I was eating.
Mm.
And it was like I kept doing more research. It was like I was kept learning about all the things that eating this way can cure or improve or prevent. And so I was teaching my patients about it also. And um, I got under the skin of my administration and they said, you can't do that because the doctors are getting offended. This was by the time I'd gone to radiology. Um, the doctors are getting offended that you're telling their clients what to do. And I was like, I've never told anybody what to do. I've
Yeah,
said,
right.
here, go watch this, read up on this. But I was told absolutely do not discuss this anymore with anybody. And it was
Wow.
yeah, it was bursting inside of me. I was like, I've got to do something.
In a fucking
So
doctor's office? Really?
it was a radiology clinic. Yeah. And it was multiple doctors that were complaining that I was sharing that.
How dare you
Yeah.
make people healthy? What's the matter with you?
Right. Right. And yeah, that was my That was my trek into, do I really trust this medical system that I've been working with so long? Um, Again, we could get back into politics on that if you want to. But I knew I had a hunger for it in my heart. And so I let my husband know, and he was like, okay, let's do this. And so I sunk a ton of money into a program and was almost done with the program when we went to this big conference. And it was like, oh, yay, I'm excited. I'm going to learn how to speak at churches, to let women know what's going on, to get clients for insulin resistance reversal. This is awesome. This is amazing. On the flight home, as soon as we land, we get a call, and his mom had had a stroke.
Oh,
So we rush over to the hospital. We're working, dealing with her for a few days. 3 days later, my dad dies unexpectedly.
wow.
I shut down. I was, my dad and I had become so close, and I'm so grateful for the years that we had, but it just destroyed me. And it took me about 6 months to get through enough of the grief that I could start working on my business again. And COVID hits. I'm not going to churches to speak. So I was like,
No, but
what the
yeah.
heck do
Well,
I
not unless you want
do?
to get arrested.
No, no. So I had to learn how to promote online. Well, every time I would take another course or spend more money on something, it was like, oh, this is going to be the answer. I'd get to the promotion part and I'd shut down. And it was like, I'm not a doctor. I'm not, an expert. I'm learning from all these people that know all the molecular structure of every single thing. And while I understand it, I can't recite it. And so they're not going to want to learn from me. Typical imposter syndrome. But I didn't see
Mm.
that. I thought I just didn't have the right tools. And so I would go spend another couple thousand and another couple thousand. Um, until one day my husband comes in and says, you've made $267 in the last 3 years. You have to get a job. It's like I kicked and I screamed and I cried and I hollered, and I landed working with Zenny Me. Started off as their VA, eventually graduated to doing business coaching with them. And they're the ones that taught me brain spotting. And so I was using this tool with my clients, and the same clients that before I learned the tool were struggling week after week like I was. Now they were doing a session or two, and they were doing the thing and succeeding. Do you think that clicked in my brain?
Yeah, right.
No. I had to
No,
go and
really.
4 years till I'm sitting at my desk one day crying, thinking, I just can't be an entrepreneur. I'm not meant for this. I'm not built this way. And then it dawned on me. It was like, well, duh, why don't we brain spot it? And I did. And I do these now. I do podcasts now. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Facebook. I'm marketing. And I have a business now that actually not only pays for itself, but pays the house, pays for the household.
Mm.
So,
That's awesome. I love that. I want to, before we dive deep on brain
mhm,
spotting, I want to talk more about the insulin resistance because I think this is such an important subject. And it's near and
yeah,
dear to my heart because our oldest son, he developed diabetes at 29, type 1.
type one.
Um, Very odd, for a person that age. Typically, type 1 you see much earlier in life, and type 2 you see
Right.
much later in life. So at 29 to develop it, and we didn't know what was going on. So we had kind of this slow slide until it got to when we took him to the emergency room the night we figured out what was going on. His glucose levels were over 700. So he was in, approaching, what is it?
DKA, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. That's exactly right.
Diabetic ketoacidosis. Yeah.
That's the word I was looking for, and I couldn't think of it. So he actually wound up on life support for a couple of days. And look, I have nothing but respect for people that deserve it. So I'm choosing my words carefully here. Simply because you hold the title of doctor or attorney does not mean that you're good at it, and it does not mean you deserve respect. So I know enough about diabetes because I worked with a couple of people that had diabetes. In fact, I worked with a guy who had both of his feet amputated, like you talked about, because he
Yep.
did not follow his doctor's instructions. And he actually wound up dying from diabetes because it just kind of kept going and he just couldn't make the corrections and it wound up costing him his life. And he was just the nicest guy in the world too. Just, just
Mhm.
not that I want bad things for anyone, but it's especially gutting when you see it happen to a really good person. He was just a genuinely good person. Um, but so we get to the hospital and they say his blood sugar levels, and I'm like, okay, so when's he getting insulin? And the emergency room doctor said, well, his what's the potassium? The
Uh-huh.
potassium levels are too low. And so we can't give him insulin. I said, so what are you doing to the potassium? They said, well, we gave him a pill and that didn't affect it all. So we're giving him another one. I said, well, no. He said, what do you mean, no? I said, we just tried that and it didn't work. We don't have a lot of fucking time here. So do
Yeah.
something else. We're not going to keep doing this. I said, give him some insulin. And he goes,
Should have been.
do you want me to kill your son with a heart attack? And I said, he's 29. We're going to take some chances. Blood sugar levels at 700 are fatal. He's
Yes.
going to die. I'm going to watch him die if he doesn't get insulin. I'm not going to stand here and watch my son die. It's not going to happen. So they transferred him hospitals and we got over there and another doctor kind of started down the same path. And I'm like, fuck this. This is not going to happen. So I'm arguing, I sell groceries for a living. I'm not a doctor. I didn't say at Holiday Express last night, but I'm not going to stand there and watch my kid die. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so we finally get the head of endocrinology, I guess, at that point. And I said, he comes in, I'm fine. I'm like, this guy finally gets it. And so they're explaining things to him. And I said, I'm not going to stand here and watch this. And he said, you need to put potassium into his jugular and you need
Yeah.
to give him
BJ.
insulin right now. And they said, well, he might have a heart attack. He said he might, and we'll deal with that if it happens. But we have to take some chances. We're past the point that we can allow this. We don't have the time that you think we have.
Yeah.
And I was like, finally, somebody that gets it. And like, I just signed off on something that might fucking kill my kid. It was not a great place to be as a parent, but I knew we had to do something. And I knew doing something was better than doing what we had been
Doing
doing because
nothing.
it wasn't working.
Yeah.
And
And
sure enough, he was a young,
if they had
strong,
just
healthy.
put him on a banana bag at the very beginning, which
Yep.
is that, you see the bright yellow bags
Yep.
that's got a ton of potassium in it. If they'd done that, that would have allowed them to get enough in to do it. Just, oh, makes me just,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so I'm working my way back to insulin resistance here and diet and exercise. But he wound up on life support for a couple of days because they wanted his system to like heal itself. So instead of having to work all the functions, they did it
Yeah.
for him. So they intubated him, they put him in a medically induced coma, and that's not a fun thing to do to see your kid there, on tubes and on life support. But it was the right thing to do, but it wasn't a fun thing to do. And so when he got out, he immediately changed all of his behaviors. And it wasn't like, he didn't weigh 400 pounds. Was he overweight? Sure. Was he doing unhealthy stuff? Sure. But it shouldn't have impacted him the way it did. But like he immediately changed all of his stuff. And like he's a completely different person simply from changing what he ate
Mhm.
and incorporating more exercise into his life. And I'm not talking about triathlons and doing, crazy amounts of exercise. It's just moving his body every day and changing what he eats. And I've heard it said, and I absolutely agree with this. Food, exercise is the least prescribed medication in the world, and food is the most abused substance in the world. And I think that's 100% true. And it just made me, when you were talking about your story in terms of PCOS and trying to solve that on your own and changing your diet and watching
Mhm.
things immediately change, it's crazy how fast that takes effect, isn't it?
It is. It is. Because within 2 months, I was, my coworkers were saying I was melting.
Mm,
Um, the ironic piece of the story was that I went and did all of that research. I took the research to my physician. I explained to her what I found. She was like, "This is great. I'm worried about the fats." Okay, great. And she's worried about my cholesterol level. So we decided to do that. She says, even though you know what you want to do, I want you to go to a dietitian anyway. Now, what I researched showed that your carbs, especially for a woman of my age with PCOS, the way that I was presenting, I needed to be 20 carbs or under a day
So
to
essentially
reverse my
keto,
disease.
right?
Keto, right?
Yeah.
You have to be careful saying those words now because keto is a dirty word, not as much today as it was then. Um, but so I went to the dietitian and I said, look, this is what I'm going to do. And she was like, oh, no, no, you're going to kill yourself. You have to have at least 50 to 60 carbs every time you eat. And you need to eat 5 to 6 times a day. And that I think was the moment that I realized that people were doing what their doctor told them to do. And they were getting worse anyway. And so they were giving
Mm.
up. It's like, why do I keep doing what they tell me to do? And I'm getting more medicine and I'm feeling worse and I'm all of this. I might as well eat what I want to eat. And it was like, oh, that was such a light bulb moment for me that it was just, they were doing what they were told to do. They were just being told really bad medicine.
Oh, it's so frustrating. And that look, that's financially driven. It just is. I work in the food
Oh,
industry.
yeah.
And so like I've, right, wrong, or indifferent, I've been, and I'll leave the companies nameless, but I've been in the boardrooms of Fortune 15 companies and had the head chef that designs all their menus come in and talk about how they made what they made. And, we do this because it's got better mouthfeel, and we do this because it's got a higher salt content. So it makes the food taste better. It makes people want more of it. And
Yep.
so, like, it's not an accident that
No.
all of this processed stuff is really hard to get off of once you get onto
Yeah.
it. It's designed to be that way. And
Yeah.
then step in. Hey, if that doesn't work, you know what you can do? Call Merck, call Pfizer, call Johnson and Johnson. They got a pill for you that'll take care of all of these problems.
Yeah.
So the
They'll
whole
they'll
money
inject you
behind it
with
is
some Ozempic and paralyze your stomach forever and make you go blind, but your blood sugar will look better.
yes, totally. I refuse. Like, I've heard people talk about Ozempic, and look, it's the same way for me as the COVID vaccine. I
Mhm.
did not and would not. I would have lost my job before I got that shit injected into me. Not because I thought it was bad, not because I thought it was going to kill me. You don't know. I have nobody knows. They couldn't know because the only way you can test a vaccine is over at least a decade with blind studies, with control groups, with all
Mhm.
sorts of data. There's no way to know it without at least 10 years, a minimum of 10
Minimum.
years. And
And
we
then
had it in what,
let,
11 months?
let me tell you a little secret about the research portion of it. Having been in research, so I was working with the research companies doing the pain studies, where we'd remove the wisdom teeth, or they do bunion surgery and then test the pain medicines.
Mm,
And there was a very famous drug that was being researched by a company that this one person had worked at. I'll leave out the drug, but anybody will be able to research and find it, that was causing heart attacks. That was a pain pill. And rather than report that, they changed the study length time so that that way it didn't reflect the heart attacks. So even when
Jesus.
you're getting research done, you have to look at who's paying for the research, number one.
Yes.
And then you have to see whether they ended the study early. And so when they end the studies early, a lot of time they'll say, oh, it's so good that the efficacy level is so high that we just don't need to continue the study anymore. That should show, some red lights should be going off, going, hey, wait a minute. Why did we really end it early? Do I want to touch this? And for as far as the COVID injection, I felt the same way. I don't know if I was still a paramedic working in the system that I would have known though, because I have a friend who's in horses. And when COVID first showed up, she mentioned to me that COVID has actually been in horses for a very, very long time.
It's a cold virus. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And that they have been testing, an antivirals, they've been testing vaccines, they've been testing all these things. And they will not produce one for horses because it causes severe clotting and a horrible death to all the animals that it gets administered to. And this was before any of the news reports came, or news, any of the stories came out about symptoms from the vaccine. And so when she told me that, it was like, why would I want to put that in my body? Because certainly in the last 3 months, they haven't changed it enough that it's not going to kill me, possibly.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I didn't, because I'm kind of that zebra. I'm the one that, when I get a medication, Phenergan, which is for nausea and vomiting, makes me vomit. You know, uh, Versed, which is supposed to give you amnesia, it doesn't work on me. So it's like, if I were to put that in my body, I probably would have been one of those people sitting at that congressional hearing saying, hey, you really screwed up my life, and here's why.
Mm.
Yeah.
I always say there's a reason they call it a practice. And
Hmm.
you should ask a lot of questions. You should educate yourself and you should be skeptical. You should ask for rock solid proof before you agree to something. Um,
Right.
yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I
So
consider my physician to be a consultant as opposed to an authority figure, which is,
sure.
our parents and grandparents, it doesn't matter what the doctor says, they're going to do it.
Yep.
Anybody that questions it is just wrong.
Yep.
But with my experience now, I look for a physician that will treat me as somebody who can research and has been in my body for 52 years. I know my body better than my doctor ever will.
Right.
And, when you find a partner like that, that doctor can be amazing.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up. I said it at the beginning, but let me reiterate that point. I have nothing but respect for good doctors, good attorneys, good professionals. Look, I'm good at math as well, and I've always been good at math. And it's funny because I made this statement, and I have three sisters, and two of them just freaked out. But I said half of all doctors are below average. That's just the numbers. And
They
they're like,
have to
"How can
be.
you say that?" I'm like, "What do you mean? How can I say that? It's fucking math. I don't understand what's hard to understand about this. Like that will always be the case. If there was four
Yeah.
doctors, two of them would be below average. That's how math
Yeah.
works.
What do they call the doctor that graduated last in his medical courses?
Doctor, exactly.
Doctor. Yeah. You have to realize that they're people, and
Yes,
people are flawed. People get into positions that they don't need to be in, and then you find the brilliant ones. And I have been so blessed to find some brilliant ones along the way, that have educated me, that have worked with me, that have been my physician. And so just take your time finding the right one is the only advice I'd give.
yes, and I will say almost all of them, I am certain, are well intentioned, and almost all
Oh,
of them are telling you what they think is right at that particular
yeah.
moment. I don't think for a second that they're intentionally giving bad advice or intentionally trying to harm people. That's absolutely false. Are there some bad apples out there? Sure, but those are few and far between. Few and far between that have
I,
bad intent.
yeah. Well, I'm only thinking of one. So I had a gynecologist who hated women.
Oh,
So he might
Jesus.
be the exception to the rule. So I do have one that might be the exception to the rule, but I would say 99.97%, do the ivory soap test. Most of them
Exactly.
out there are out there doing the work because they care,
Yes.
um, but they do get crispy because they work so hard. And so you got to
Yes.
watch for that too and make sure they're not just burned out.
Yeah, and to your point, you said it the best. They're human beings. They're no different
Mhm.
than anybody else, other than they've gone through a tremendous amount of school. And in
Yeah.
general, that makes them more educated and better positioned to understand and diagnose things inside your body in general.
Yeah.
General
Well, they
statements. I think
have
that's true.
their zone of genius.
Yeah.
I don't want my doctor doing my financial stuff, but for medicine, I want my doctor that I have interviewed and know, and she knows me. That's what I want her for. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's like the old joke. The good news is they found your colon cancer early. The bad news is your dentist found it.
Yeah. Hadn't heard that one. I like that one.
So, yeah, when you talked about the insulin resistance, I wanted to have that conversation with you in particular because you described exactly what we went through and witnessed with our son. And I think it's so valuable for people to understand you can take a whole bunch of control of your health simply by eating healthy foods. Like if you do
Yeah.
that one thing, it can change your life, literally.
And people tend to think that you can't do it on a budget. But I guarantee you that you go on Google and you search keto on a budget or Whole 30 on a budget. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different ways to eat depending on what kind of malady you're addressing. I think keto is amazing, but it's not for everybody. But if you look for budget recipes, they're out there. So there's really not an excuse except that we put ourselves in that situation. And actually, I do brain spotting also for people that are stuck in those cycles of eating. I've got a client right now. I really don't take new insulin resistance clients, but I took one because husband of a friend, you know how that goes.
You're a
And
softie.
I'm a softie. And he was willing to do the work because I told him, I said, you're going to have to do the work. You're going to have to meet with me weekly and you're going to have to do some brain spotting as we come across issues. And he has his desk at work is like right around the corner from the break room. And so he can see all of the treats that the company lovingly
Mm,
buys for them and leaves there all the time. And he was just going in all day long and eating.
grazing.
And
Yeah, I
so,
call it grazing.
yeah. And so we did brain spotting on it, and he hasn't touched them since. And that's been about 4 months ago.
I
So
love it.
brain spotting can help for that too.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a great segue. So, your husband says get back in the medical field. You go back in. You wind up with say the name of your company again.
So I ended up with Zinny Me, and it's ZYNNYME.
Yep, there we go.
And they work with therapists to grow and scale their private practices.
Yep. And things go terribly for you for a couple of years. You don't connect the dots that the solution you've been
Mhm.
exposed to for quite a while, but then you do get exposed to it. And that solution is called brain spotting. So now
Yes.
let's do the deep dive on brain spotting. I turn the floor over
So
to you.
now we get to talk about one of my favorite things. Um, so when we take things in the world, we take them in through our body, they come up to our brain, and our brain has to decide, is this going to kill us if we forget it? Or is this too much for me to handle and process right now? If it is, then it forms this nice little package basically of the memory and says, we'll process this later. We'll just keep it here. I like to call it a landmine. If it's not too much and it is safe to process, it goes into long-term memory and it becomes as important as what shirt you wore last Thursday.
Hmm.
Well, unfortunately, these landmines pop up and we trip over them on a regular basis. Some of them we might know they're there. Like I knew when I was getting married to my current husband that I was going to have some baggage, some landmines from my first marriage, right? Knew those were going to be there. But I did not know necessarily that some of my money stuff was back from when I was very, very little. And so there's all these different things in there. Well, traditional mindset teaches us to walk around those landmines. Oh, you can't charge what you need to charge for your services. Here's a mindset trick. Let's reframe it. Let's do some affirmations. Let's do some meditation. We're going to create new neural pathways around the landmine. Brain spotting goes in and scoops the landmine out. It's gone because it helps you to finish the memory. Even if you don't know what the memory was, your brain and your body do. And so, in very, very few sessions, usually 1 to 3 for each issue we're dealing with, we can get rid of that landmine forever. So
Can we walk through an example of what you just talked about? You can use like whatever. You can use me if you need an example. I don't know. Maybe you've got an example. Maybe I'm
yeah.
overcomplicating this.
So for me, a very obvious one was the one we just talked about, the fact that I was throwing all this money at all these courses, thinking that I was going to find the right course. I was going to find the right fix. My landmine was not feeling like I was good enough to do this. I wasn't a doctor. I wasn't, fill in the blank. Um, and when I did the brain spotting, I didn't actually understand what the memory was that I completed, but the resolution to it was you don't really enjoy the insulin resistance coaching as much as you thought. You're really more of that paramedic, come in, fix things, and move on,
Hmm.
rather than work on the same issue for months and months and months. So why don't you do something you love, like brain spotting? And instead of trying to do what everybody else is telling you to do, which was probably rooted in the military upbringing, instead of doing what everybody keeps telling you you have to do, why don't you make this your business? You know all the stuff now. You've spent enough money, you've done enough things. Figure out what works with you and makes you happy and do that. How many times have I told clients that? How many times has the average coach told somebody, do what you love and do it your own way? But I had a landmine there preventing me from doing it. And so that landmine gets removed. And I've been doing this for a year and 2 months now, and I'm profitable.
I love that. So for what it's worth, I could have used this when I was a kid. I told you I went through college on a baseball scholarship, and so like I played baseball since I was 3 years old, and I knew immediately. Like if you asked me when I was three, or when I was 10, or when I was 15, what I was going to be when I grew up, I was going to be a professional baseball player. That's all I wanted to
Baseball
do.
player.
Yep. And so my dad was my coach until I was, I don't know, about 14. And the my dad was the stereotypical evil little league coach from the movies. He was that guy in real life.
Yeah.
And so it worked out really well that I am who I am because if I didn't love it as much as I did and I didn't want to do it as bad as I did, it probably would have been a bad experience to have him as my coach. But I have great memories and fond memories of playing for my dad, coaching my teams, even though a lot of people would look at it and go, well, fuck, that kid was psychologically abused for 15 years. I loved it. I loved every part of it. However, it wasn't always rainbows and unicorns because I was a pitcher. And, every once in a while as a pitcher, you get wild. And my dad would come out to the mound and say, throw fucking strikes. And I'm like, I think I've demonstrated that I understand the objective. Clearly, I'm not able to accomplish it. Maybe you, as my coach, could give me some pointers on what is preventing me from throwing strikes right now
Coach
so I could
me.
throw them once again. It sounds like brain spotting would
Yeah.
solve something like that.
Brain spotting actually is used a lot for performance. In fact, I had a client a few months back that was a pianist, and she had had a really bad experience at her last recital.
Mm,
Um, and we brain spotted it. And she had, not only did she have a blast, she did really well and got invited to a secondary performance because of how well she did. So yes, it would have been beautiful for that.
that's awesome. In sports, we call that when you can't do a basic function that you've done thousands of times. We call it the yips. You've got the
The yips.
yips. Yep. There
Yeah.
was a second baseman for the Dodgers. His name was Steve Sachs. And for some reason, one season, he developed like this block of throwing the ball to first base. So he'd field a ground ball and he'd throw it into the stands behind first base. Didn't matter in practice, everything was fine. He'd get in a game, and here it was again, throwing the ball into the stands. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's what you call it the yips. We've actually got a name for it in sports because it can jump up and
Yips.
bite you in the ass every once in a while.
I can see that. I like that. Yeah, it was definitely a land. It could have been brain spotted and it would have helped. Yeah.
Yeah. So how does brains like what's the process for I'm not asking you to walk through it step by step, but in general, what is the process? What does someone who engages with you do? What could they expect?
So the first thing we do is we do an intake conversation just to find out what's going on, because I do need to do some differentiation, make sure that it is a landmine we're dealing with and not just a habit or something like that. Very rarely is it not. And then I need to know whether there's shame attached to it, because if there's
Mm.
shame, we do an additional session on the shame. Shame is incredibly powerful in a very negative way. And if we don't clear that first, the landmine will not go away. You'll get in a spiral. So we go through that intake first. And then when we meet again, usually we do like 90 minutes and we come in and I do a little bit of education, make sure you know what you're doing, because 90% of the time people are like, am I doing this right? It's like, yes, you can't do it wrong. But we talk about what's going on. We find it in the body if we're able to. We find it in the gaze. So if you think about, and I want the listeners to play along with this, okay? Think about the last time you were in traffic and you were frustrated, or you had a tiff with your significant other. I want you to pull up the sensations you were feeling at that time. Okay. Now, the
Yep.
first thing I want you to notice is that your eyes just went to a certain spot. Okay. That is where connected to where it's stored. All right. Now, feeling that feeling, I want you to take your eyes and go all the way to your right, noticing the feeling and thinking about being in traffic or being or fighting or whatever you did, and then go all the way to the left and come back to the middle. Most people can feel a difference between one side or the other. It'll be stronger on one side and weaker on the other. And of course, we fine tune it more when we're doing brain spotting, but that is actually your brain spot. The theory is that it's connected to where in your brain in the 3D sense that memory is stored, right?
So there was a sorry to interrupt, but so
No, you're good.
Jenny had an inside joke because I was about 10 minutes late to start this podcast because I was stuck in traffic. And so she picked that example intentionally because she knew it was fresh for me. It's good you did because I can't remember the last time I got in an argument with my wife. We get along really well. But
Good.
I looked to my left. Does that mean anything?
So that is an old NLP story. We're taught that, you look up to your right to remember and up to your left to create. And that's actually not true. It's actually very individual
Hmm.
where you're looking. Again, it goes back to where in your brain you're looking for the history of that. We store things in our brain and we store things in our body. They recently did a study that showed that we have memory cells even in our kidneys. So the reason that we look for it in the body as well as the brain is because it's stored in two places. I also say the body is a better lie detector than your brain. Your brain's sole purpose is to keep you alive, and it will lie to you to do that.
Hmm.
Usually you can tell your brain's lying to you because your body is in there yelling, uh-uh, because you feel that, it's like, ooh, there's something wrong here. And so that's a good sign that there's a disconnect between those two. And what we do in brain spotting is we just allow the two to communicate. How do we do that? It varies every single time. But generally, we tune into the sensation, we stare at the spot, and we just let the body do what it does. It sounds very woo, but it's actually grounded in really good science. It's based off of EMDR. Now I'm going to get the words wrong because I always do, but basically it's another reframing and memory completion technique that's used for PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. That is much more general, and this is much more specific. And brain spotting works about twice as fast. I would say EMDR is considered the gold standard for PTSD. Brain spotting is the platinum standard
Hmm.
because it's so much faster.
So we've had several guests on that have talked about storing trauma in the body, like you just talked about.
Mhm.
And we've had several guests on who have talked about and are experienced with using EMDR to deal with moving past trauma or roadblocks or chat, whatever you want to call them. And so, not the first time that we've heard that or talked about it on
Well,
the
good.
podcast. Yeah, so it's a very interesting subject.
Okay.
The approaches are generally the same. From I'm not talking about brain spotting versus EMDR. I'm just talking about the approach to those things are generally
Hmm.
the same. We've had a couple of folks who said they can. I don't think they called. I don't think they. I'm trying to. I don't want to denigrate any. I'm not trying to denigrate anyone.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember how they referred to that process and or ability that they had, but they could see in someone's body where they were storing trauma, which helped them identify it, which helped them develop solutions with their client or with their patient. Is that similar to
Yeah.
brain spotting?
No, that is that sounds much more like energy work, light work.
Yep.
I'm still on the fence there. Remember I'm coming from a science background, so I actually have a friend who did a technique called mind body soul alignment, and I have no freaking clue what she did. My husband asked me when I came home, and I was like, well, she like put her fingers in two spots, and then I felt it somewhere else, and I'm sore now, and I don't know why. So there's probably a lot of validity to it. I'm still kind of that, I'm growing into it.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
brain spotting and EMDR are more about connecting. EMDR is about connecting the sides of the brain and a little bit of connecting with the body. And then brain spotting is definitely about finding that landmine, that memory, and connecting it with the body where the memory is in the body and allowing resolution. Brain spotting is actually the child of EMDR. The gentleman that discovered it was doing EMDR. He was doing it with an ice skater. They'd been working together for quite a while. I think it was a couple of years. She had a jump that she could not complete no matter what she did. It was a simple jump for her, not me. It's been too long since I ice skated, and I could never do those fancy ones anyway. But had been working on it for a while, and when he was doing the rapid hand movements. So for anybody that's not familiar, the EMDR, they do series of pulses of really fast movements with the hand, and your eyes are supposed to follow it. He would get to a certain point and he saw her eyes did something weird. He was like, huh, what's that? So on the next revolution, he did it again and it happened again. And he was like, well, what happens if I stay there? And so he stayed there and let her focus just on that one spot. She uncovered a new memory. Turns out that one of her parents had walked in and said, I'm done. I can't be an ice skating parent anymore. I'm leaving. And so while she was learning that jump. And so her little body told her, if you do this jump again, you're going to be abandoned, and wouldn't allow her to finish the jump. Well, a lot of tears later, she went that afternoon to practice and landed the jump for the first time.
Wow.
Yeah, it's insane. And it's insane how fast it works, but they're definitely related. It's definitely more of a physiological than it is an energy or a spiritual. I do have people that bring in God or bring in their higher power to the process. Had a really cool one. She wanted to expand her therapy practice to a group practice. And she was very devout Christian. And she kept getting stuck. Even during brain spotting, she just kept getting stuck. And so finally I was like, well, what if you brought Jesus in with you? And she said he led her through the plans for what the therapy practice was going to look like, where all the offices were, and she now has her group practice open
Wow.
because she's not stuck anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can bring a metaphysical, a spiritual piece into it, but it is actually rooted in biology.
Mm. And so you could use brain spotting for just about any problem or challenge where there's a disconnect in the brain. Is that right?
I like to describe it as being stuck.
Hmm.
Wherever if you're stuck, if you are going to try to do something and your body goes, "Ugh," it'll brain spot.
Yeah, well, so I mean, you've used examples talking about someone having a challenge with eating. You've talked about an example, someone having a challenge with physical skills like figure skating, jumping. You've talked about someone having challenges, struggling to get their business up, where yours and somebody else's. So
Mhm.
those are those are very different scenarios by
Very,
which,
very different.
right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I see a lot of it for money. So people that are stuck in that money cycle, or overperforming or underperforming. And I mean, I actually worked with one young lady who had multiple SA traumas, the sexual abuse traumas, including
Hmm.
she was in a current court case. And we worked together. We did multiple sessions because her mom sent me a list of like 8 that she wanted to get through, but I graduated her in like 3 months. Whereas if she'd been in traditional therapy, she'd still be in therapy now, and she'd be in therapy for a very, very long time. So also see a lot of failed therapy.
I don't mean to laugh at therapy. It just reminded me of a Simpsons episode where they were making fun of chiropractors. And I've got a friend, a
Oh,
great friend whose wife is a chiropractor. So I'm not anti
yeah,
chiropractors. It's just a funny. So the chiropractor sees the patient, and they do the things, and the guy says, "Oh, I feel better." And the chiropractor says, "That's good. Now I just need to see you twice a week for many years."
yeah.
It was back when the Simpsons, the first 5 years of the Simpsons were awesome because
Oh, yeah.
they were taking shots at everybody. They didn't give a shit what anybody thought about it. It was a really funny show for about the first 5 years. But I digress. It just made
You
me think of that
digress.
when
Yeah.
we were talking about it. So do you see clients in person? Can you do this Zoom? How does it work?
So actually, I'll be doing my first in-person ones this next weekend, which will be 6 months ago for the people, or however many months ago for the people watching this. But I've done 100% of my sessions to this point via Zoom. I
Wow,
have
really?
never done an in-person brain spotting. Can it be done in person? Yes. But it's really about being able to connect. It's about the person on the other side of the Zoom camera being willing to play. Just be willing to play and try it. It's no different than the first time I tried tapping. Like I said, I'm kind of on that edge with these things, but I had sudden claustrophobia on set, and I was like, I've got to do something. And so I tried it because I just learned it. And it was like, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. I got done. It was like, okay, it worked. Now what? But I do find tapping, the issue comes back, whereas once you brain spot it, it doesn't come back. It
Mm,
may rear its head again later. We see this a lot with imposter syndrome, where you're first starting your business and you can't be seen because you're afraid to be seen. Now you clear that. Well, now all of a sudden you're starting to hit that 6 figure, and who am I to be doing this? I'm starting to lead all these people. Who am I? Okay, we have imposter syndrome again, but it's a different flavor. And so we go in and clear that. But the
sure, that makes
same
sense.
issue doesn't, in and of itself, doesn't recur because you've completed the memory. It's gone.
Got it. Yeah. So if someone was interested in this, what's the easiest thing for them to do? Do they reach out and kind of tell you what they're where they're stuck? Like to use your terminology?
Yeah, so I do a free consult. It is not a sales call. I know 90% of times people say something's a free consult. They're trying to sell you on something. If you want to work together, I would love to if it's appropriate, but I really want to get to know you. We know where you're stuck. I'll let you know what brain spotting can or can't do, and then we can decide together. And I'll make sure that you have the link for that. I actually have it personalized for your people. And then I also have a quiz. So for the people in your audience who are entrepreneurs that want to know what type of imposter syndrome they're battling and how to start clearing it even without brain spotting, I do have a quiz that they can take. But
Oh, that's very
yeah,
cool. Yeah.
yeah, or just check me out on my website, jenniehays.com. Just make sure it's an IE and there's no E in Hayes. Um, really confusing.
Spelled them both wrong.
Just spell them both wrong. Well, as
Oh
I'm
my
doing more
gosh.
podcasts and getting more visible, people are actually able to find me spelling it wrong too, which is really kind of cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Well,
Yeah.
that's such a cool option for people. So, I would just say, and I say this about everything when we bring guests on, open your mind a little bit. And if
Yeah.
you've been doing something or trying something for a while and it's not working, why not try something different? I had this conversation with my youngest son, who right now is looking for a new job, and the approach he's taking isn't working. Well, take a new fucking approach, Einstein. Like if you if you keep doing the same thing and it ain't working, do something different. And
Yeah.
he's a smart kid. He's really ambitious. He's fine. He'll land on his feet. However, as his father, I felt like there was a time for me to step in and go, hey, you know how this works. We've talked about this. You were raised like this. Take some action, buddy. Let's go.
Yeah.
Um, so that applies here too. If you're stuck, you're stuck. Why not ask for help? And
Yeah.
I know you call it consulting. I talk about it from a coaching perspective, consulting perspective, whatever. I always use Tom Brady as my example. Tom Brady is widely regarded as the best ever quarterback to play in the NFL. At every stage of his career, he had a head coach, he had an offensive coordinator, he had a quarterbacks coach, he had a wide receivers coach, he had a running backs coach, he had an offensive line coach. He had a lot of people coaching him, and he was the
Yeah.
best ever at his position. So, if you're going to tell me that you're better at what you do than Tom Brady was at being an NFL quarterback, okay, but I bet you're not. And so why not look for help? And when there's people that have
Right.
options like this who can speak firsthand, because remember, Jenny discovered this, was kind of blind to it for 4 years until she tried it herself, and that's when her business took off. So
Yeah.
like this is remember the hair club for men. I'm not just a
Yeah.
member. I'm not just the
I'm a
president. I'm a
patient.
member, right?
Yeah. I remember. Yeah.
Exactly. Cy Sperling. His name was Cy Sperling. But
Yeah.
that is a great selling point. Like it gives you confidence that the person who you're working with has been on your side of the desk. And I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of value in that.
And I've seen, I mean, at this point, I have probably done 150 brain spotting sessions. And so, and I've only had one fail. I've had one fail, but the reason it failed is because he didn't quite internalize the instruction that he didn't have to talk out loud and that he could, and he didn't ask. Because I would have told him, if you want to talk out loud, but you don't want to hear it, hit mute. I don't have to hear it. And we were working on his ED. So there was
Mm,
some shame in there that he didn't
sure.
want me to hear. And that's the only failed session that I have ever had in all that because the technique works. And yeah, why not do it? It's so fast and it, well, I have fun. You're going to be working. You'll be tired, but you'll get your problem fixed.
And that's the whole point. If
Yeah.
you got something that's stuck and it's keeping you from living the life that you want, why not try something different? Why not give Jenny a call and at least talk to her about it, right? Free consult.
Yeah.
You lose
A free
nothing,
consult.
a little bit of time, and maybe you wind up in a really good spot. Why would that be a bad thing, right?
Right. And I'm third generation of people who have been fired from a sales job because I refuse to sell
Mm,
somebody something they don't need. And I wear that as a badge of honor. My dad and my sister and I all have that badge of honor.
yeah, love that. Love that. Absolutely love it. Well, so before we let you go, one of the things I always do, because we cover a lot, like you saw,
Yeah.
we cover a lot of stuff. You never know where it's going to go here. And I feel like I ask good questions and get a lot of stuff out on the table, and that's fine, but I'm not perfect. And I want to make sure we don't miss anything. So I always ask our guests before we wrap up, is there anything I didn't ask you that you feel is important to get out? Or is there a topic that you feel strongly about that we haven't talked about yet that you want to get out while we're in front of the audience? The floor is yours. So is there anything that we missed?
I think the biggest thing, and this is something I like to stress in my marketing and my presentations, everything, is that you're not broken. You're not broken. You're just blocked. And it's just your body trying to do what it's naturally designed to do. So it's fixable. This isn't the end of the world. Even if they feel like you're at the end of the world, if you're like I was sitting at your desk in tears, it's only because you don't have the technique yet. it's not because there's something wrong with you.
Mm, that's great. That's powerful. I love that. So for like listeners, the links will be down below. Jennie created a special link for Salty Ginger Talk listeners, which is great. Her website is jenniehays.com. The technique is brain spotting, and you can go out and research it. You can go to our website. There's lots of good information on there because I went on there to be ready for our conversation. Or you could just schedule a free consultation with Jennie and get some, get down and dirty about it and understand it even better. So, Jennie, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your patience with me being a little bit late because of my traffic. I'm going to keep looking to the left and see see if I can get over it. But really appreciate you coming on. You did a great job, and I really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, and I look forward to getting to share this with people. I think that you have an amazing platform here. I loved our conversation, and um, yeah, I can't wait to hear it and your other things between now and then. Fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. We'll add you to the long and distinguished list of, look, we're lucky. We attract really high caliber people. Cause I think if you're, trying to pursue a meaningful and purposeful life, you're thinking, right. And you're
Yeah,
challenging yourself. And so we attract people that do those things. And so that's where there's so much value to our audience, is that we get awesome people that come on and have genuine conversations, and there's so much that can be learned from that, and we just appreciate you giving your time and that to our audience, as well as offering your services to them in the future. So thank you again.
well, thank you. I've enjoyed it, and I wish them just the best with their pursuits too.
Love it. Love it. Awesome. Thanks, Jennie. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay, have a great weekend. Great job, Jennie. That was awesome. Really
Oh, thank
appreciate
you.
it.
It was fun. That was a
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, I think one of the reasons it resonates with our listeners is because we have real people on. Like, it's not someone coming on just presenting themselves as an expert or the authority on something and talking at the audience. They get to
Mhm.
kind of experience the conversation. And so, by having the guests kind of talk through their things, I always really just appreciate how much guests are willing to talk about things that were tough for them, because I think that's what really gets our listeners, that hooks our listeners, is, hey, these are real people talk about real things. This is something I'm interested in,
Yeah.
instead of take these 7 steps and your life will be different and buy my book. Right. And like, don't get me wrong, there's a place for that. It's just we're not the place. That's not what we do. So,
Yeah. It's not a commercial.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, love having folks like you on. You did a great job. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It was a
Yeah.
lot of fun. And yeah, I've got a couple people I'm thinking of that I may connect you with that may be potentially good guests for you
Love it.
if you're looking.
Yeah, no, we're always looking. You can tell because what we're recording this whenever it is September, when we're airing it on things. We've got a lot of stuff in the chamber, but
Yeah.
you can never have too many interesting people. And so would love if you've got other folks that would be interested in appearing. We'd love to talk to them. Yeah,
Yeah, I've got a couple in mind. So I will connect with them, make sure that they're wanting to do it, and I'll connect y'all.
awesome. Yeah, we really appreciate that.
Awesome. All
Yeah,
right.
that's a big compliment. We appreciate it.
It was so much fun, and it just, yeah, like I said, I can't wait to hear it and see how it comes across to the ears instead of just out this. you know.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Totally. Oh
All
my
right.
gosh. Well, good stuff. Well, have a great weekend.
Thanks, you too, Joe. I appreciate
All
you.
right. Thanks, Jennie. You too.
Bye.
Bye. All right, guys, there you go. So, like we talked about in the intro, uh, Jennie is just a neat lady, and really appreciate her making her services and what she's able to do for people available to our audience. And so, make sure if you are stuck on something, you've been stuck there for a while and you can't figure out why not give it a free consultation with her? One, you get to talk to an awesome person, and two, she might have a solution to help you get unstuck. So we'll have our website and anything else, the quiz for entrepreneurs that she talked about. Those links will be down in the show notes. So go down there and check those out, and make sure you reach out to Jennie, and she can probably help you with what you're stuck on. And really appreciate her giving us her time to come on the podcast and talk to us about Brainspotting and what she has to offer. So thank you again, Jennie. You did a great job. James puts it up over here every day. Head over to our website, saltygingertalk.com. All the podcast episodes are there. We've got links to all the social media accounts there. We publish a newsletter every weekday that you can subscribe to on our website. We're going to keep having awesome people on that will help you build the life of purpose and meaning that you want. You don't want to miss all that awesome advice. You don't want to miss these great conversations with great people. So make sure you catch our next episode, and we will see you there.